Hey everyone, Kurt Demare here, PDJ number 47356. I wanted to make a video that touches on the topic of switching to the trilogy. Seems to be a very hot issue right now online. A lot of people are making that switch and that transition into the three manufacturers that we call the trilogy. And I wanted to just kind of touch on a couple topics that I think might make this a little bit easier for everyone. The first thing I'd like to touch on is setting proper expectations. When moving from one manufacturer to another, it can be tough to try to find those discs that are going to work for you, like a lot of the discs you're already throwing. I think it's really important to keep in mind that there's not going to be one exact disc that's going to directly replace the current disc that you're throwing. You might find something in the ballpark, and that's really what we're shooting for. But there's no way that one disc is going to directly replace another. So having that expectation in mind, I think, before you jump into it, is something that's going to really save you a lot of frustration moving forward in that transition. It's really important that we don't set ourselves up for the wrong expectations, because if we do, we're ultimately setting ourselves up for failure in the future. I think it's also important to note that there's going to be a learning curve with the discs that you're going to try out, that you're going to work with to try to find replacements for your existing bag. It's going to take a little trial and error. It was a little frustrating for me trying to get some of these things figured out and get them working how I'd like. With a little bit of persistence and a good attitude about it, I really was able to find some awesome discs that are working amazingly for me right now. I'm extremely happy with my setup right now in my bag. And when I initially started making that transition, it was a little shaky for me, a little rocky. I wasn't 100% sure, and there was a time where I said, whatever, I'll carry a mixed bag of whatever I want, and it's not a big deal. And I kind of revisited it and really solidified a bag that I think is working really well for me. Something else to consider, and I find this to be true with many of the trilogy molds, not all. There are definitely some that won't fall into what I'm about to speak about. Many of the discs that are in the trilogy lineups have a lot of glide. That took a little bit of getting used to for me. You definitely want to consider your form when you're throwing a lot of the trilogy plastic. It really made me make my form better, which is a great thing. I was really used to being able to just go out with a T-Bird or a Firebird or something like that and just put 100% into my throw and just rip it out there, and it would go and do its thing, and the shot would be that. I've found that a lot of the discs that I'm throwing now, I'm not throwing them at 100% to get them to do what they're supposed to do. And I've had to really look at how I was throwing these discs and how my form matched up to what these discs need to make their flights be what they're supposed to be. It was just sort of an eye-opener for me. It helped me in a lot of ways. I think that something else that could be very helpful for us to do when we're seeing other people posting about getting our discs, recommendations for our discs to be replaced and stuff like that. I think that we should kind of follow a general rule if possible. If you're looking to make a switch over and you're asking the group for recommendations on what you think might work for you, I think it's really important for you to make the list of what you are looking for recommendations for, but it also add the disc weights and the plastics, how they're flying for you, and how far are these discs flying for you. All that information is going to be really useful for anybody who's going to make a recommendation for you, and kind of give them a much better idea of what's going to work best for you. Something else that I think is really important as well, if you don't have the experience throwing a specific disc that somebody's asking for a recommendation about, don't chime in on it. I try really hard to only keep things that I post about as my personal experiences If somebody is mentioning a disc that I've never thrown or I know nothing about, I don't try to comment on whether or not it would be better for this or better for that. I really don't know. So I try to be as honest as I can about that kind of stuff, and I really think people appreciate that. I know I appreciated that when I was asking for comments and stuff like that for people to make recommendations. If they didn't know, that's fine. I'd rather talk to somebody who really has that experience and can say, oh, this is exactly what this did for me, and I think this would be a perfect match for you. Something else that I think is beneficial to know, and I'm only going to touch a little bit on this. I'm planning on making another video in the near future that's going to really kind of dive in on this. So please don't freak out about this if it's not exactly your opinion, but I just kind of wanted to give a very, very, very general guideline on which plastics seem to be more stable versus understable as far as the plastic types go. When we're talking about Latitude 64 and West Side discs, the general consensus seems to be that the Opto and VIP plastic is the more stable of those two manufacturers, then followed by the Gold Line and Tournament plastics, and then the recycled lines and your base plastic lines. Something else to keep in mind here is that we're talking about once these discs become seasoned. We're not talking about these discs when they come right out of the box. We're talking about over time where these guys kind of break in. When we're talking about dynamic discs, it seems to be that Fusion is the most overstable, followed by Lucid, Biofusion, and then the classic plastics. I know that there's going to be different opinions on that. I'm simply just trying to make a very, very, very broad general statement about those discs once they've broken in, kind of what the characteristics are as far as stability goes. I also wanted to just make a quick thanks to Booter, Patrick Peebles, and Alex Bush for helping me kind of gather some of that information. Again, please don't take it as gospel. It's just a general sort of statement that may help some people make some decisions when they're making their switches over to the plastic. And I do plan on making another video here in the very near future that really, really breaks that down and gets into depth. I know there's a couple plastics I didn't mention, little variations that I know some of you guys have some thoughts on, and I'm going to get into that later. So I hope this video was helpful, and yeah, good luck throwing. Cool. Have a good one.